Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating called Blockonomics. It's this brilliant framework about how neighborhoods can reclaim their local wealth and build real economic sovereignty. And the best part? It all happens through a simple, virtually invisible shift in your daily habits. It's all about changing your mindset from just existing in a neighborhood to actually owning a real stake in it. Okay, let's dive right into this. Does your neighborhood have a secret bank account? Well, it kind of does. Every single city block generates an immense amount of economic value every single day. We spend money, we trade skills, we take care of common spaces. But here's the catch. Most of us never get to see the balance of that secret account. Traditional economic metrics like GDP, they're designed for managing entire nations, not for checking the pulse of your specific street. And because our local economy is basically invisible, all that wealth we're constantly generating is just being quietly extracted. So where exactly does all that money go? Well, the framework uses this concept called the leakage rate. Think of it as the invisible hole in your neighborhood's pocket. It's the chunk of your locally generated spending that instantly bounces out of the community, straight into the hands of absentee landlords, remote megacorporations, and financialized services. When money leaks like that, it stops circulating locally and it literally starves our local ecosystem of the very value it just produced. The core idea here is absolutely crucial. If we can't measure this leakage, we have zero way to defend our local economy. Section 1. The secret bank account. To plug that invisible hole, we first have to figure out a way to measure these hidden flows of money and labor. And a huge piece of that puzzle is what Blockonomics calls the private tax burden. Get this, the average renter actually pays way more in private taxes, like rent extraction, insurance overhead, and energy bills, than they ever do in public income tax. But there's a huge difference here. When you pay public taxes, at least in theory, that comes back to you as local infrastructure and services. But your private taxes? Poof, they vanish. They exit the community entirely and end up as shareholder dividends for people who probably don't live anywhere near your block. And this brilliantly illustrates how everything in a neighborhood's economy is deeply connected. The framework maps this out across 6 dimensions. You've got the block budget, which tracks the public money coming in, and the private tax burden and leakage rate, which track the money flowing out. But it goes way beyond just cash. It measures human elements too, like the labor exchange, tracking all that invisible care work and mutual aid, the life efficiency index, measuring our overall well-being and time efficiency, and the asset commons, which are the shared spaces we actually steward. It's one big, interconnected system. Section 2, the tip jar reframe. Now, what's really interesting about this is how we actually stop that leakage. The proposed solution isn't some daunting, massive economic overhaul. It's actually just reframing a simple, automatic, daily habit you already have. Think about your financial muscle memory, tapping your phone and leaving a 15% tip at the coffee shop. A traditional tip is a one-way gift. Once you give it, that money permanently leaves your community wealth pool. But an ownership tip, that means redirecting just 5% of your spending into a collective local fund. It feels exactly like tipping at the checkout, but instead of vanishing, it behaves like an ownership stake that accumulates for you over time. Let's do the math real quick to show you just how accessible this really is. If someone is making, say, $50,000 a year, a 5% pledge is roughly $7.50 a day. Honestly, that's just a fancy latte or a sandwich. On an individual level, it feels incredibly small. But when you take that $7.50 and aggregate it across hundreds of people living on the exact same block, those micro-investments suddenly bypass traditional finance entirely and create millions in community-governed capital. It's a real game changer. Section 3. The Community Capital Fund. So the crucial point is, once a neighborhood starts making this 5% shift, all that capital needs a safe place to live so it can be put to work. The framework outlines a community card system that uses a strict 50-50 split. Half of your pledge goes straight into immediate community projects. Think community gardens, tool libraries, or local block parties. The other half goes into long-term capital pools. And listen, this isn't structured as a charity. It's literally an engine used to pre-purchase the future. Instead of waiting around for outside investors, the community uses this pooled money to systematically buy back its own local businesses, housing, and infrastructure. And to make sure this local economy stays rock solid, the system runs on a complementary currency called community credits. These are backed by a really clever 33-33-33 formula. A third is backed by cash reserves, a third by actual community assets, and here's the best part, a third is backed by community labor. That means you can literally build your stake in the neighborhood through pure sweat equity. If you volunteer to clean up a local park or work on a community farm, your time converts into community credits. Grounding the whole system in real productive capacity completely removes harmful speculation from the equation. Section 4. Food for generations. To really see this economic model in action, the sources highlight this deeply vivid case study called Food for Generations. It's a program designed to heal that huge separation between us, the food we eat, and the land it grows on. And it starts on a micro scale. Imagine a family committing just 50 cents per school day to invest in their child's food future. That's maybe $100 a year, way less than the cost of a weekly coffee habit. By redirecting just that tiny fraction of daily change, families are essentially pre-purchasing lifelong food security for the next generation. The return on that 50 cents a day is honestly incredible. By the time that student graduates from the K-12 system, they will have actually accumulated 12 square meters of access rights to community farmland. It acts as a permanent basic community food guarantee. To put that into perspective, 12 square meters is enough space to largely sustain a committed DIY farmer. And if two partners combine their plots, they can literally support a small family through an entire growing season. Now, let's zoom out and look at the macro impact of this, because it's staggering. Take British Columbia, for example, where there are roughly 300,000 students. If an entire graduating class participates in this 50-cent daily program, they collectively add 888 acres of working food commons to the province. Think about that for a second. Every single year, a massive, living, working farm is purchased and legally secured for the community, and it's all funded by pocket change. Let's move along and see how this builds over time, creating a complete 12-year educational pipeline. In the early elementary years, kids start by modeling ecosystems right in their classroom terrariums. By middle school, the whole class is outside actually tending to a polyculture food forest. When they hit high school, they're mastering the complete seed-to-harvest cycle. So, upon graduation, when they receive their farmland credits, they haven't just bought a piece of land. They've spent 12 years learning exactly how to steward it. Section 5. A portable farming legacy. Now, a super common question here is, well, what happens to this land and these credits if a student or their family moves away? The absolute genius of these farmland credits is that they're designed as a permanent micro-asset, and they are completely portable. If your family moves within the network, your access rights just pack up and move right along with you. They're inheritable, so you can pass them down to your kids. And hey, if a graduate just doesn't want to farm, no problem. They can gift their credits right back to the community food pool, so the neighborhood benefits from the harvest. Your stake never just disappears, and it never becomes obsolete. And while the credits themselves can move around with you, the physical dirt, the actual land, is legally anchored down by a permanent land trust. This is the legal foundation of the whole shebang. The trust ensures that this community-funded land is permanently yanked off the speculative real estate market forever. No outside developer can swoop in and buy it, and no future local government can suddenly defund it. The land remains a permanently protected resource for you and future generations. Section 6. The power of us. Ultimately, all these mechanics we've been talking about point toward a much broader philosophy regarding collective neighborhood governance. And we can actually see this working in the real world right now. Look at Paris. They allocate 5% of their entire municipal capital budget to participatory budgeting. Real residents actually get to propose and vote on projects. There was this Italian expat, Enrico Fulsto, who just proposed planting an urban forest at the edge of the city. And because of this community voting system, his small idea got fully funded and turned into a real, self-sufficient ecosystem. When we pool our resources and make decisions collectively, we can build some truly incredible things. What Blockonomics is ultimately building toward is what they call the third way. You see, we're all so used to this binary world where things are either owned by the government or they're privately owned by some faceless corporation. But the third way? It's community stewarded. It encourages this massive economic shift from asking, what do I get out of this, to proudly stating, this is what we own together. And that brings us to the final thought of this explainer. The reality is you are already generating the wealth. You're already paying those private taxes. You're already leaving the tips. The financial muscle memory is absolutely already there. The only question Blockonomics is asking is where that value goes. Every transaction you make is quite literally a vote for who owns your street. So are you going to let it leak out to an invisible corporation, or will you redirect it to buy back your block? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope it gave you a totally new perspective on the power of your neighborhood economy.